A few days ago, Olympus announced a new camera, E-M1 Mark III. And I just had to put that camera against the other E-M1 cameras, the E-M1 Mark II and the E-M1X. Which one is the best one? Which one is the best option for you? Which one is the best option for me? A battle between E-M1 Mark III, E-M1 Mark II and E-M1X coming up. Hi there, I'm Peter Forsgard, an Olympus visionary and a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. This channel is all about you getting to be a better photographer and about Olympus gear. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the bell so you get notified when there is a new video online. I post 2 videos a week, but let's start with the battle. I will have 8 rounds on this battle. And remember, all these opinions that I make are my opinions. You might disagree with those, because testing a camera is always a matter of opinion. So if you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments down below. First round, look and feel. E-M1 Mark II and E-M1 Mark III look and feel almost the same. The look and the size is exactly the same. You can even fit the same battery grip to both of these cameras. And only major difference in the front is that the logo is in a different place. There are some differences in the back with the buttons, but I will get back to those when I talk about usability. The E-M1 Mark II and the E-M1 Mark III feel the same in your hands. But then the E-M1X is totally different. It's a lot bigger. It's a bit big for me too. But is there a difference between E-M1 Mark II and the E-M1 Mark III? When we talk about the design, the look and feel, I'd say there is no difference. So this round goes to E-M1 Mark II and E-M1 Mark III. I like the smaller size of the E-M1 Mark II and E-M1 Mark III. That's why they won this over the E-M1X, which, as I said, is a bit too big and bulky for me. Round 2, usability. Usability is always one of the most important things in a camera, because if the usability is no good, it's not fun to photograph with the camera, and of course if it's not fun, the results aren't that good. So usability is a really important thing. All these 3 cameras feel really good in your hand, and taking pictures with all of them is a lot of fun. So there's no difference in that if we look at the big picture. But then there are small little things that make some better than the others. So let's see what the differences are. E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X has the menu button on the left side. It's in the bottom with the E-M1X and in the top in the E-M1 Mark III. And that is actually, for usability, quite a bit different, because it's a lot easier to toggle the menus with one hand rather than with one hand. So when you hold the camera like this, it's a lot easier to press the menu button, because the menu button is also a go back button. So toggling the menu with E-M1 Mark III and the E-M1X is a lot faster. And then there's one really good thing. That's the joystick. E-M1 Mark II does not have the joysticks, the other 2 have. And that is a really, really helpful feature or button to use when using the AF, because it's easy to move the AF point with the joystick, a lot better than using the arrow pad. And then there's a third thing that goes in favor to the E-M1 Mark III and the E-M1X. It's the My Menu. It's a very handy way of storing the most used menu items in the menu, so it's easy to access. Combining with that with the super control panel, it's a lot easier to use than the E-M1 Mark II. So this round goes to E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X. Round 3, customization. Customization of your camera to your likings has always been very good with Olympus cameras, and so all these 3 cameras are very customizable. 2 major things separate the E-M1 Mark III and the E-M1X from the E-M1 Mark II. The first thing is already mentioned My Menu, which I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But the second thing is the custom modes on your mode dial. In E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X you have 4. You can store 4 different settings and access them quickly with the mode dial. And then also the E-M1X and the E-M1 Mark II has B mode in the mode dial. It's an easier access to live comp, lifetime and bulb. Those features also exist in E-M1 Mark II, but with the E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X it's a lot easier to access those features. And also this round is a tie between E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X. I know, it's a bit boring, but what can you say? As far as these categories and rounds has gone, E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X are quite similar. Round 4, IBIS. All these three cameras have image stabilization in the sensor, called IBIS. E-M1 Mark II has 5.5 EV IBIS. E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X, they both have 7.5. All these numbers are amazing, but you probably guessed that this one is also a tie. I know it's a bit boring, but as I said in the previous round that E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X are quite similar. Let's see if we can find any major differences in the upcoming rounds. What do you think so far? Do you agree with me or do you think differently? Please let me know in the comments down below. Round 5, weather sealing. And I think I will stay here outside because the weather is the kind that you really actually need weather sealing. All these three cameras have very good weather sealing, but to be honest, E-M1X has the best. It's a bit better than the others, and it's also made for outdoors because it had GPS and some other sensors that measure temperature, height, velocity, speed, and all that kind. Things that are familiar to you from action cameras. So definitely this round goes to E-M1X. And let's look at the score. Round 6, autofocus. When E-M1X was launched in January 2019, it was the king of the hill in Olympus land what comes to AF. Then E-M1 Mark II got a new firmware last summer, and it came pretty close. Only few things separated these two cameras, but the E-M1X has a bit more features. So it is a bit better when it comes to AF if we compare it to E-M1 Mark II. But what about if we compare it to E-M1 Mark III? Are there any major differences? And I have to say that there are two differences. E-M1X has subject recognition algorithm. It's an AI thing. The camera knows what the train looks like, what a car looks like, what a helmet looks like, and what an airplane looks like. The E-M1 Mark III does not have this feature. But then E-M1 Mark III has one thing in the AF that the E-M1X doesn't have, and that is Starry Sky AF, which is quite exciting. And if you haven't seen my first impression video of the E-M1 Mark III, where I was talking about the Starry AF, you might want to watch it from there. And you probably guess I need to be a bit boring again. This one also is a tie. Sorry, but I cannot do anything about it. It is. They are similar cameras, and that's what it is. But let's continue and see if we can get any differences between the E-M1X and the E-M1 Mark III, because E-M1 Mark II has, you know, fallen a bit behind. Let's see if E-M1 Mark II can score some points in the upcoming rounds. Round 7, special features. Well, special features are always something that can be debatable. Some of us need them, some wouldn't care less. I don't know how much you like the special features. What is your favorite special feature in an Olympus camera? It doesn't matter what camera you have. Please let me know in the comments down below. What is your favorite special feature? Two things that separate E-M1 Mark II from the E-M1 Mark III and the E-M1X. And those two things are live ND and handheld high-res shot. So does this mean that this round is also going to be a tie between the E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X? Well, surprise, no. Because E-M1 Mark III has one really good feature, and that is you can update the firmware via OIShare app. And I think that's a good improvement and a good special feature. So this round goes to E-M1 Mark III. Finally, we get some differences between these two cameras. I know some of you might debate this one because the E-M1X has GPS and all those other features from action cameras, which I was talking about in the weather sealing part. But still, I prefer having the OIShare app to be the one that I can use for firmware upgrades rather than having the GPS. I can have my phone track the GPS and then transfer them to my files or the image files. So I prefer the firmware upgrade via OIShare rather than the GPS module. If you disagree with me on this one, please let me know in the comments down below. Okay, we have one more round, but let's check what the score is before the last round. And before we get into the final round, after that I will make a conclusion and give tips which one of these 3 cameras you might want to get and what I would get if I was on a market for a new camera. And the round number 8 is image quality. For some, image quality is the most important thing. And I agree. Image quality is really important. But as I said, the usability for me is equally important because without the good usability, it's no fun to photograph, and the image quality doesn't matter. If you don't want to photograph with the camera, who cares about the image quality? So I think both things should be good. All of these 3 cameras have the same sensor. The difference is that they all have a bit different processors. The E-M1 Mark II has the TruePic 8, E-M1X has 2 TruePic 8 processors, and the E-M1 Mark III has the new processor TruePic 9. So in theory, and actually in practice, there should be a small difference in the image quality because the newer cameras have more processing power. But let's see how it goes. In everyday photography, when you're snapping around, you don't see any difference in the image quality. There isn't any. I could not see. If I just took an image and looked it in my computer screen and did not pixel peep, it doesn't matter. From image quality wise, there is no difference. But if you go into deeper and start pixel peeping and looking at the noise levels, then there is actually a bit difference. But always when we talk about noise, remember, noise is kind of random stuff in a way that there are so many things that affect it that even if some camera is a bit warmer than the other, the warmer camera might produce some more noise. So it's always in theory, or in this particular test, when you talk about the noise, this is not a scientific test. I had this setup and I used 40 to 150mm f2.8 Pro Zoom lens. It has tripod collar so I could get identical image easily. The light source was the house light there on the table, and the exposure was 2 seconds f4 at ISO 200. So it was pretty dark. I used JPEG file format because E-M1 Mark III has RAW files that are not supported by the RAW converters yet. But I will do another test with RAW files in the future, so we'll get back to this noise thing. But let's continue. And remember, this test has very little to do with real-life photography. But here are the results. What I found that E-M1 Mark III has about 1 stop less noise than the 2 other cameras. I have tested the E-M1 Mark II with the new firmware against the E-M1X and found on that test that E-M1 Mark II was a bit better. But on this test today, I could not make any differences between those 2 cameras, so they are about the same on this test. But then there was a slight other difference, and that was in colors. E-M1 Mark II produces a bit more warmer image than E-M1 Mark III and E-M1X. They both have a bit more blue in the image. And first I thought that I forgot to turn the keep warm colors off from the E-M1 Mark II, but I did not. So every camera had the same settings, and here are the settings that I had. So on this particular test gave the E-M1 Mark III 1 point. So it has the best image quality. But only when we're talking about noise. Everything else is about the same. And after the final score, I will make a conclusion, because there are some other points that needs to be addressed before I can decide which one I would get. Here are the final points of my battle. As you can see, the winner is E-M1 Mark III. And then is the big question, which one would I pick from these? But first I ask you, which one would you pick? Please let me know in the comments down below. All of these 3 cameras are really good and can produce stunning images. It's more about you than the camera. If you have any of these 3 cameras, you will get good results if you are a good photographer. And if we talk about the E-M1 Mark II, always when a new camera comes to a market, or at least an upgrade, the older model gets a price reduction for 2 reasons. They want to sell the stock out and give a good price on that. And then the second thing is that there always going to be second-hand market for these, or used market for these cameras, because people are switching and they bring back their old camera and they buy a new one. So there will be a very good quality used E-M1 Mark IIs on the market in coming months, I bet. And you always need to consider the price of the cameras, how much you want to pay for your new camera. if we only look at the value for money, I bet the E-M1 Mark II is the best on this one because it has the lowest price and it will go lower in these upcoming months. So if you only look at the value what you get for your money, I would say that the E-M1 Mark II is the best choice for you, even though it doesn't have all the fancy features that the newer cameras have. But still, E-M1 Mark II is a very capable camera even today and a couple of next years. I will be still using that because it's a good camera. And then if I had to choose from these, I would buy, if I would buy a new camera now and money was an option, I would get the E-M1 Mark III because it has live ND and it has handheld high-res shot, which are real remarkable features. And those are features that I actually would use. The reason that I don't want the E-M1X is simply because it costs a bit more and then it is too big. But I don't know, you might be disagreeing, as I already asked you to comment down below if which one would you get. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.